James, it's a pleasure speaking to you again.
Yeah, likewise.
And this time around, we're talking about Glork Patrol and the magic robot. So, congratulations on this new upcoming book that you're coming out with.
Oh yeah, thank you. Um, I've made so many books, but each one is special.
Well, then tell us why this one is so special to you.
um, uh, I just think, well, it has a couple little ideas in it that have been bouncing around in my head for a really long time. And I'm finally glad to get it on paper. Um, uh, and that and the main idea that I've really wanted to do for a long time is that the main Glork character, the like the dad character in the book, the Glorkian warrior, I always wanted him to have a tiny little robot version of himself that he could put in his pocket. So a package arrives at the door and they open it up and it's the little mini robot version of himself. So I just think it's a really silly idea. And I'm glad to finally use it. Because so this is the third Glork Patrol book, but before this there were three Glorkian Warrior books and a Glorkian Warrior video game. And in the Glorkian Warrior video game is actually like the third or fourth full game we made. The others we worked on for like a year and then threw away and rejected, and worked on the next one for a year and threw away and rejected. And finally, we ended up with the one that we released, which is really the best version. But in one of the older versions, the Glorkian warrior character, who was hand drawn by me, would, animated and everything, run around. And if you'd find a little hole in the ground, he could take out of his pocket a little pixel version of himself. And the little robot pixel version would like jump down on the ground and go in the hole, and then you control him in the hole, and it'd be like pixel graphics version. Outside of the hole was hand drawn, inside of the hole was pixel graphics. So that was like an early idea from like 10 years ago that we played with for a little while, and I didn't get to like fully use. So I brought that little robot from the pocket back, and now he's got his own story.
I'm actually astonished the fact that you conceived these ideas 10 years ago and then somehow you just remember to do it today.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if an idea is good, it sticks with you and keeps like poking at you and saying like, "Hey, remember me? The idea you had?" And so you look for some way to use it. um, it really happens a lot. Sometimes an idea comes to me and you put it in the book right away, but many times it's something that's been bouncing around in my head for years, just waiting for the right uh, opportunity to come to life.
Most excellent. Now, where did the how about the magic robot? Where did he came in to
Oh well,
a string of ideas?
um, the magic robot was also in the first Glorkian Warrior book. Glorkian Warrior delivers a pizza, and the magic robot was in the game
Hmm.
as a giant floating head. Basically, it's a kind of mix of a couple different ideas from other media that I enjoyed. Like, for instance, the giant floating head in The Wizard of Oz, when they go to see the wizard, there's that giant floating head. So, like, wizard, magic robot, those are pretty close. Um, Also, he's a lot like Sinistar from the classic arcade game, which was a giant floating head um, that would try and kill you. Um, uh, and he would shout things at the player like destroy, which I think, I have the magic robot say destroy. Luckily, I don't think destroy is trademarkable. But there's other floating heads in stories too. I basically like I just love the floating head. But
Mhm.
then in my sketchbook over the years, I started drawing like other pictures of the magic robot. Like, what if it wasn't a giant floating head? What if it was a guy? So I shrunk the head down smaller and put a body on it. And I really liked that drawing. And so I wanted to use that too. Um, uh, so they crack open the big head, and inside is a smaller, another magic robot. So I got to use both designs, both magic robot designs in one book.
I mean, it was certainly Wizard of Oz like that. That's for sure.
Right, right. Yeah, like the guy behind the like the guy behind the curtain.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Now, I'm not familiar with the other two, Glork Patrol books because Glork, the dad version, was he like the primary character for the other two books? Because I feel like Gonk
Well,
and Baby Quackadoodle are the primary characters.
yeah, in the Glork Patrol series, Gonk and Baby Quackaboodle are the main characters for sure. Um, uh, it was the previous series Glorky and Warrior where the dad character was more the main character. But kids really focused on Gonk. Baby Quackaboodle is new for Glork Patrol, but the kids were really in the original series. Kids were much more focused on Gonk than on the Glorky and Warrior. So for this new series, I focus more on him. Also, I started to not like the word war in the
Mhm.
title of my book. And so I wanted to come up with something that was less military sounding, So Glork Patrol. He never really engaged in warfare in the original books. I think I was just thinking of it was again like video game inspiration. Like Glorkian came from um Glork and Glorkian came from old thinking about old games like Gorf and Galaxian and Galaga, and I wanted to have something that sounded like that. And then Warrior just was a good arcadey sounding name, like Wizard of War. Um, uh, but I tired of the word war after a time and wanted to replace it because they really just go on patrol. They're like space rangers. They're not they're not warriors.
Now, I'm curious because I know your other books, the Dragon Puncher was all inspired by your family. Was this because I get a sense this was also kind of inspired
Oh
by
yeah, definitely. Um, I mean that's what the stories are really about is family. Um, uh, in the case of the Glork Patrol books, it's like a adoptive family. My own family, we birthed them, but I was interested in that idea of the adopted family and um, basically uh, when the dad character encounters these kids on his adventure and basically adopts them along the way. So as he goes along the way, kind of like how Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, as she goes through her adventure, adopts new friends along the way. But I make them literally a family rather than just figuratively. Um, the
now.
Wizard of Oz is a great source of inspiration. I mean, it reverberates constantly through culture. Basically, the same storyline of the Wizard of Oz also happens in Star Wars. Um,
That's true.
yeah,
Yeah, it is a classic children's story that you know goes on and into everything and anything.
it's a great structure. Like the hero or whatever moves through his adventure making friends along the way who join the group. It's just a really interesting it's just an interesting way to interact with the world and with characters.
Now, I know you've been doing these children's books for quite some time, but your children is all your
The,
children is
the
grown up. I mean,
yeah. No, my oldest is basically an adult. I mean, he's 19, um, uh, and off at college. Which being at college kind of ages you down little bit. Still kind of a kid, but yeah, he's off at college, and then the next one, Oliver, is a freshman in high school.
mhm.
Yeah,
So
so they're not little anymore. They're both taller than me.
so how do you keep on going, pushing yourself forward, developing these children's books? I mean, when I read it, I get that sense like children, would love this.
Oh yeah. Well, okay, so I got really good at writing for kids when my kids were little, because I was telling them stories. But then an interesting thing happened when they got bigger and needed me less. Is I'm like nostalgic for those old days when they were little. So I think about that relationship of parent to kid a lot and that kind of thing. So um, uh, that informs the stories that I write now.
Wow. And and today, how do you tell your stories to your own children?
Oh, um, I don't have they even read any of my recent books. I'm not sure. They're excited that there is a new book, like um I just started working on nothing's been published or anything, but I started working on the rough draft of this new book called Boot Bird, about a boot who lives in a bird. And the 19-year-old was like, "Oh my God, that's so great. I'm so glad you're finally doing Boot Bird." Because I'd done just like one little drawing of Boot Bird, like 12 years ago or something. And so he was really excited to see that it was going to be a book. Now, whether he actually reads it or not, I don't know. I think, though, there's no reason why an adult couldn't enjoy these books. I mean, I'm an adult and I enjoy writing them, like I, they are for kids. But, um, but I kind of feel like they're for adults too.
Well, I'm glad that your children still remembers these things and still enjoy them. So that's a great plus for you.
Yeah, for sure. I also told them, of course, that they're going to inherit the IP, and so they're excited about that too.
Have you ever I know like a lot of writers or comic book artists they evolve as life changes around them. Have you ever thought about creating a little bit more mature content as your children, it's still about family, but as your children grows up?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, a couple of years ago, I put out this book, Mecha Boys, about two teenage boys that build a robot battle suit. That's very much deals with, uh, you know, uh, uh, more advanced issues than my kids' books. Like they build the robot battlesuit to take revenge. It's basically like a parable for school shootings, but I didn't want to draw a gun.
Mhm.
They make the robot battlesuits, to take revenge on their high school, and then they turn into heroes. So it kind of has a happy ending, but their goal is to wreak havoc. So obviously that's something more mature. The trouble is when I do a book like that, an adult book, I'll see like on Instagram, a comic book store will be like, "We got another great kids book by James Kochalka," and show one of my adult books in their kids section, and I have to like say, "Please just move it," you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
um, because they look the same. The way I draw an adult book and the way I draw a kids book, it looks like this. I mean, I haven't changed. I didn't change. I did adult comics before I did kids comics, and I didn't change the way I drew from when I was doing adult comics to when I did kids comics. And now when I draw an adult comic, I still draw the same way. So it seems silly to put like on a book for adults, you wouldn't put a label saying this book is for adults. That's
Mhm.
kind of ridiculous, right? But people can get mixed up. So I feel bad. I feel bad if anybody gets one of my serious adult books for their little kid. But I guess just look at them, peruse them first.
I mean that's also a tribute to the fact that your art has been consistent for all these years. I mean, which
Yeah,
is
I guess that's true. I mean, I try and I try and what do you call it? I try to try new things, but I draw the way I draw. It's like handwriting.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it it changes slowly over time. I I could force myself to draw, radically different, but I prefer something that feels organic when I do it. That's why I say it's like handwriting. You know, just the way my hand naturally moves.
Mhm.
After all these years.
Do you ever think of like like a the end game for any of your comic book series, or do you basically just keep on going when ideas develop?
Um, I it's kind of funny for both the like Glork Patrol, Dragon Puncher, and Johnny Boo. I draw a new one when Chris Starro sends me an email and says we need a new one. And he'll be usually like we need the first 4 pages and the story outline like next week. And I'll be like, "Oh my God." I'm like, and so I draw the first 4 pages and send a story outline, and then I finish the book. Um, and if I have any complaints, like he'll give me a little more time than that, but he usually wants it pretty soon. Um, so that's kind of funny. I just do it because he asks me. Basically, if anybody asked me to draw a book, I'd probably do it. um, but I after having drawn, well, okay, so 3 Glorky and Warrior books and 3 Glork Patrol books. I think I've just handed in like the 13th or 14th Johnny Boo book, and there's 4 Dragon Puncher books. I really feel like now I'd like to do some other new things. And I did just complete a book called Jimmy's Elbow, um, which I serialized on my Patreon. So Jimmy, I had a bunch of really big ideas for stories I wanted to tell, and I was kind of overwhelmed with how big and complicated they all were. So I decided to instead just go with my absolute worst idea, which was Jimmy Elbows, the story of a boy who has an elbow. And I just started drawing that as like a daily strip on my Patreon for an adult audience. Although I tried to keep in mind that probably kids would end up reading it, so that one definitely works for both adults and kids because I drew it for an adult audience, but it's totally appropriate for kids. Uh, so that's a whole new graphic novel. It's like 160 pages, 180 pages, something like that. Brand new characters, brand new book that's going to come out from Top Shelf. When I'm not sure. I handed it in like December or January, but we don't have a release date
Hmm.
that I know of.
Well, take your time because I know you do very quality work that everyone likes and respects.
But yeah, the book is complete. It's the insides are all complete and rewritten and edited. The covers are complete. The only thing I haven't drawn on that book is the like title page, indicia, and if I want to put some notes in the back or something. That's all I have to do for that. So that one's done. It's done. It just needs to have a publication date picked. But
Well,
dude, you're right. Yeah, I maybe draw too much. Like if you want to be a completist, it's difficult because I have released well between 1 and 6 books a year since 1995.
hmm.
Really a lot of books.
Well, I can't wait to check out your Jimmy's Elbow and talk to you about it again.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's really great. I'm very excited to my Patreon is there we have like 90 to 100 subscribers. So, a small group of people. So it was interesting to draw a book that was read by just a small group of people, but they loved it. So I think that Jimmy's Elbow is something special, and excited to bring that to the world. Yeah, but that still could be a year away or something.
Most excellent, most excellent. Can't wait. Well, James, let me wrap it up with one more thing because I know you have very loving fans out there. By chance, are you gonna meet your loving fans physically, maybe at a Comic-Con somewhere or
Oh my God,
someone?
I don't have anything lined up. I've
Uh,
been just doing the last few years just doing small, well, really the last few years, really nothing, right? Because of the pandemic. But over the last year, I've done several small comic book conventions here in Vermont.
mhm.
But I haven't traveled afar in quite a while. Um, uh, Maybe this close to being able to make that mental leap.
Not ready yet, but
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, really close.
maybe after Jimmy's Elbows is out.
Yeah.
Most excellent, James. Well, hey, you know what? I'm glad that we're talking face to face. So this is a meeting itself, and this is the second time, and it's always been a pleasure speaking with you. And let's do this again. Most
Yeah.
definitely.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no, thank you, James, for coming on and speaking to us because Glork Patrol and the Magic Robot. I had so much fun, and I don't know, I was giggling inside when the little Glorkbot is dancing. I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah. Oh, it's great,
it's,
isn't
it's just
it?
like full of glee for some unknown reason. So
Yeah,
terrific.
thanks for remembering the name. I talked about the robot the whole time and forgot to mention its name, Glorkbot, which is a great little name.
It is, and I think this is a terrific series. Thank you very
Thank,
much. Next
thank
time,
you.
James.
Bye bye.